Hello and welcome to this week's Midweek Connection. I'm Todd Jordan. I serve as senior pastor here at Strawbridge United Methodist Church, and I'm delighted that you've joined us for this week's Midweek Connection, and I'm even more delighted that I am joined by Pastor Beth Chenault. Some of you may heard the ugly rumor that she is retiring at the end of the month, and I'm afraid I must confirm that ugly rumor is true. June 27th will be Pastor Beth's last Sunday here on staff. Now, for those of you who are going to be out of town because you may be traveling this summer, don't worry, we're going to have another celebration on September 12th. That'll be the big farewell celebration to honor her work here these many years. But June 27th will be her last Sunday on staff, and we'll have a breakfast reception at 10 o'clock in the morning in the activity center, and followed by worship at 11 o'clock that day. But Pastor Beth, you and Bill and your family have been worshiping at Strawbridge for a long time. When did you come to the church?
Bill and I moved to Kingwood in 1990. And David was 3 months old. Our youngest child was 3 months old. And so he is 31. And so so we've been coming to Strawbridge for that many years, 31 years. And it's a home for us. It is family for us, and it's where we belonged.
Absolutely. So you were a member here for a while, but it didn't take you long to get involved in ministry, in volunteering. So you were very active in student ministry. When did you start doing that, and how did that work?
Well, Bill and I had, in the other churches, different places that we had lived, we had always volunteered in student ministry. And so when we came here, it was just a natural place for us to see if we could serve there, and we were welcome there and started doing that shortly after, probably maybe a year after we had moved here. So we started serving as volunteers in student ministry.
Right. And then you moved from volunteer to actually paid staff, right, at some point?
I did. A couple of, maybe a year or so after that, there had been some changes in the youth directors that were here at the time, and B.T. Williamson was the senior pastor here, and so he asked me if I would consider serving as an interim youth director, and I started out 8 hours a week doing that, and loved being a part of it.
Interim youth director. You did that for how many years?
Probably 8 or 9 years.
And you got paid for 8 hours a week. How many hours did you actually work?
Well, it was a full-time job for me, but it's because that I'm passionate about students and children, and so it was a blessing for me to be able to do that. And eventually, I was hired as the full-time youth director here.
And some may not know this, but when you were full-time youth director, about how many students on average were attending on Sunday, and about how many students were you taking on a youth mission trip?
We had, usually on Sunday evenings, we had 60 or 70 students here, with about 20 adult sponsors that worked and spent time with them. And the all-youth mission trip, the largest trip that we took, was about 240 students. Wow. So every year it grew. And the thing about that at the time is there were a lot of churches in Kingwood that did not have a student ministry. So our students at Strawbridge would invite their friends to come along, and that's how it grew to be so many.
Well, and I think there was some pretty good leadership there too. You've meant a lot to this church, and at some point you made the transition from lay staff to ordained clergy, and you've been appointed as a local pastor here for many years. When did that transition happen, and what was that like?
Well, Brad Ramsey was here at that time, and he came to our church and really was just an amazing pastor and friend. And But when he came here, he was ill, didn't really realize it at the time, but so he was in the hospital quite a lot, and I would go and visit Brad in the hospital and talk with him and pray with him. And one of the very last times that I saw him, he asked me when I was going to do what I was called to do. And it just kind of caught me off guard. In fact, I don't even think that I was able to answer him at the time. I was so caught off guard that he had confronted me with that. And I knew that I was called to be in full-time ministry. And so really it was a blessing, but I was just, had kind of dodged it for a while.
Well, we have certainly been blessed by your leadership here at this church. So Pastor Beth will be giving her last sermon as paid staff on June 27th, and you're invited to join us. And like I said, if you're out of town or can't make it on the 27th, we'll have our official farewell celebration in recognition and honor of Pastor Beth's ministry here at Strawbridge on September 12th. So put both those dates on your calendar, and may God bless you this week. Thank you, Pastor Beth.
Thank you, Pastor Todd.